So today we're going to get ready to press 400 pounds of apple cider. And finally, the maple press plate. You can see there. So this has got a socket in it that goes up in there, and that presses down, and you can see why that's got to be so sturdy. This, when I built this, it had to be really strong. I was concerned that I didn't know that the fir, if it would be strong enough for all of this weight. It's like a really is a press, but I haven't had any problems with it. I'm careful I don't over tighten it, but it seems to be just fine. So here on the pressing tower, you can kind of see the joinery that I used right there for strength. Those set in there like this. I'm afraid if you would have bolted that on the outside, it wouldn't have worked. And it may eventually fail. It may need to be a hardwood, but I haven't had any trouble so far. So traditionally, you would have used an axe handle. This is how this screw was designed, to put in there and to get that extra leverage, because you need to really press them tight to get all the maximum yield out of your apples. I've never used one. I've always used, I think this is like it's a big for a butter churn, for scraping butter on the sides of a butter churn. And it came with something I had one time, and I've always used it because it works good for if I get a stubborn apple that doesn't want to go in or is rolling, I can deal with it, get it in there without getting my hands in the masher, and it works really good to get some extra force on there. So that's part of it too. So the only thing we have left to go now is we'll set the top piece, and I'll kind of show you how that works, and then the ultimate apple press workflow, I'm hoping. I think I've got it pretty well dialed. It's going to be much more efficient for me. I was very fortunate in that the whole top piece of this was still in such good condition, but I can show you. Let me flip it around here and see how this works. And so there's an adjustment screw right here, and this is a plate that adjusts the distance between that wheel, that wood wheel with the pulverizer on there, and the apple. So you can change this with this screw here to accommodate different sizes of apples, because if the apples are small, you want it up close, or if they're bigger, you want it back out. So it gives you some adjustment there. But it's very cool to have all of this original with the, you can see the name still painted on there. I think you can. You can see that there. And it was the medium, it says medium size on it, so there must have been maybe a small, medium, and a large. I don't really know. But all original, all the original hardware. So this sits on here and then goes over top of the pulverizer. Well, I'll tell you, not having the original frame all intact and all rusted and rotten, it was no small thing figuring out all the dimensions and making everything work on this. But this is kind of clever. So built onto the arch, there's these little, cast in there, these little steps, and then these little wings flip over. There's one on both sides that lock that down tight so it won't lift. And look at the back there, same thing, right? We got these little, aren't those great? Look at the little detail. They don't do things like that anymore. A little carpenter had to chisel that out for that to fit in there like that. And then you just twist that, keeps the top from lifting on you, and it can't go anywhere. But isn't that cool? Now you can see your pulverizer down in there. There it is. And the hopper and the flywheel. And I'll rinse that off. It's a little dusty. And then we're ready to go. We'll show you the workflow. So in the past, my apple pressing workflow has been just terrible. We've had all of Mrs. W's bowls and containers and spilled juice and the dogs drinking out of it and everything. So we don't want that anymore. So we've got, for those of you who guessed, 400 pounds. There's 400 pounds of apples there, which should yield, I'm guessing, around 25 gallons of juice. So I'll have to go through and see who guessed 400 first, but you may have cheated. I think I did mention that in my Facebook posting. So the workflow goes like this. So the family will be working together. We'll back the truck up here, take off the tailgate, and load the apples from there. Well, actually, let's just do it. This is my bucket washing invention here. I'll show you. So the apples will be here with the tailgate off, so Jack can get close. Load up the apples into a 5-gallon bucket, which I've drilled full of a whole bunch of holes. The reason why is we want to be able to wash these apples twice. And that's always been a problem, scooping them out. So I've got these two great big buckets full of water. And because we're using organic apples, If you have access to them, I mean, it's always nice. We try to buy them when we can, you know, or when we can afford them, but these are organic here. So what they'll do is they'll get the double wash. They'll get to go in here, you can just press this down, basically just getting the dust off of them. Pull this out, all the water will drain out of the bucket into the second one for the second wash. Push it down, looks good. Drain the water out, and then it's gonna sit right here. Right there, where it can be fed in to the hopper. So one person should be able to run this whole thing. Now when the juice is pressed, now I'll be working over here and we take turns on the crank because it's kind of physical. As we're pressing, the nice thing about the double barrel is you can do two things at once. So I can be grinding the apples up for the next press while Mrs. W can be pressing the juice into the bowl. Once it goes into there, then it'll go into these very nifty 7-gallon brewer's buckets, which have nice valves on them. And they're going to be filtered through these filtration bags so we don't get any of the sediment and different things on them. As well as, these are really cool, these little valves in here you can see have a sediment trap. So it comes at the bottom and you can see all the stuff that does get through will sit on the bottom and won't get in there. So those are kind of cool there. So we've got those. So that's 14 gallons of juice when those are two are full. And then we will drain these up into the heavy duty Ziploc commercial 2-gallon bags. And then they'll go in the freezer. This stuff can freeze indefinitely. And then we can just thaw it out into a pan and then pour it into a container of some sort, keep it in the refrigerator, and that will last us for, you know, a good week or so, or a couple weeks. It's a lot of juice. But that's a nice thing about apple cider is it freezes. It'll just last forever. There is always some confusion when I do this. I think maybe Europe or you Brits, apple cider is alcoholic beverage. In the States, apple cider is non-processed, meaning non-cooked or pasteurized, fresh squeezed apple juice. That's what we call apple cider. So I think that this is going to be a lot better workflow, a lot more sanitary, a lot cleaner, and just more enjoyable because it's not a small job to press 25 gallons of apple cider. You know, this especially with an antique, non-electric apple press, but the tradition of it, and you know, it's a tradition for us, and you know, we as Americans, I think, are all lacking in traditions. That it's nice to have that, you know, when it comes around every fall, you know, drag the apple press out, and it's something I think the whole family looks forward to it. I'd like to have more of that. That's what's nice about some of the older countries, and what's really nice about Mrs. W's Swedish heritage is she has brought so much of those traditions into our home, and I think it's just delightful. There's always something to look forward to, and you know, that's the essence of life, isn't it? So to next video, we'll do the actual pressing. We'll have the family out here, but I thought this would probably be a video of it in itself because there was so much to it, and well, hope you enjoy it. And if you have one of these, you're probably already pressing. It's a very cold, wet, and rainy fall day on the homestead, but we will be pressing apples today. They're probably pressing apples somewhere nearby in your home as well, so checking the paper might be a good trip this weekend, and take your family out there. It's always such a great tradition. Don't forget to thumbs up, like, and comment. We always appreciate it. We'll see you in the next video.